Hi, there should be over there.
All right, I'm going to take it off mute.
I'll go with these guys. Yeah, you are. You sit here. I'll go with these guys.
All right, we're off mute.
Okay, we're off mute. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. My name is Matt Pinellas, I'm the town manager. I just want to say hello and welcome everybody to the forum tonight. If there are any boards that need to call themselves to order, this would be the time to do that. So if anybody is on a board and sees that you have a quorum,
Yeah, I'm going to call a meeting of the Permanent Building Committee to order. Can I take a vote of attendance? John Coop? Yes. Nancy Toomey?
Yes.
I think that's it.
You get Nancy C. and
Nancy Zimlack?
Here.
Mark Doxer? Here. Pat Tompkins here.
okay. Any other boards that need to be called to order? Yes, Nancy?
The Council on Aging. Like to call for order, Council on Aging, Rose Marie. Here. Jean Prado. Here. And Joe Carson. And Marilyn Shapley. Here. And James Simlack. And I think that's it. Oh, and John, I'm so sorry, and John.
Okay. Any other boards that need to be called to order that we know of? I don't think the select board has a quorum. Anybody on Zoom that we can see that needs to be called to order?
It's the select board matter. Mark is there.
Oh, okay, we do need to be called to order then, so.
I'd like to call the Reading Select Board to order. Here in the room is Karen and
Mark.
and online we have Melissa.
And Chris as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other boards? I think we covered all of them that I saw. Okay, again, welcome. I want to welcome you on behalf of the town of Reading to our forum tonight. It's my pleasure to have you here at the Pleasant Street Center. Hopefully people signed up and took a few tours if you weren't familiar with the building. We're here tonight to discuss a very important project, a potential new RECAL. And RECAL, for those of you that don't know, stands for Reading Center for Active Living. This will be a community asset that will serve people of all ages. Many hours of work have brought us to this point, and we look forward to sharing our plans with you tonight. And the real reason we're here, too, is we want to get a lot of feedback from you. So if you have ideas, having heard what you hear tonight, please pass them on. That'll just make our project that much better. So I appreciate that. And we do have a mission statement that we came up with. I'm going to put that up there so people can read it, and you can see all the constituencies that are affected by the new project here tonight. So I'm not going to do a lot of the talking tonight. We have experts in the room that are going to do that. So at this time, I wanted to introduce our owner's project manager, OPM, Brian Romalka. He is from the firm of Turner, Townsend, and Erie. We call them TTH. He's going to tell you more about the plans and also introduce our architect, who's going to tell you more about the plans as well. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, Matt. Well, good evening, everyone. Glad to see so many faces here. And as Matt said, I hope you had a chance to take a tour of the facility. If you haven't, there are also some signs that you'll see hanging up on the wall, and that'll help provide some insights into some of the issues that this facility is facing, some of the shortcomings. But besides the shortcomings of the facility, this project is also about some changing needs within the town of Reading. There have been demographic shifts that have been happening with an elderly population, and it's important that we address those needs as part of this project. So in addition to that, as we look at this project, there's also a desire to bring together the needs of the elderly with some of the other community services that are offered in the town into one centralized location. And that's going to be the home for these social gatherings and also access to various support services. So tonight, I'm going to start by providing a brief overview of the project, how it developed. Whoops. Okay, so that is the...
Very brief overview. Are there any questions?
I'm not sure.
I think we're haunted.
But yeah, I'll start off with a brief overview of the project. After that, I'll turn it over to Mark Doxer, who's going to talk about the important work that was accomplished with the RECAL committee leading up to this building project. And after that, we'll hear from Joel here, from BH+A Architects. We'll talk about the stages of design that they've completed so far, as well as bring you up to speed on the latest design concepts that are being explored. After that, I'll touch on what lies ahead for the project, and then turn it back over to the town so that we can talk a little bit about how the town of Reading manages its facilities and capital programs. So maybe we can get that slide back up with the agenda. And then after all that, we'll be opening it up to questions and answers. And I encourage all of you to speak up, provide some feedback, ask relevant questions. That's what we're here for tonight, is to make sure that everyone understands what this project is about and all the phases that we've been through so far. So I do have a video that I wanted to show you, so hopefully this will come up.
Yeah. Try different people, maybe?
So maybe this is one of the shortcomings of this facility.
No, yeah.
Inputs.
I'm not, yeah.
It is.
Did this before. Alexa, stop. It did this before. I didn't just.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. He's gonna be
No, I just went to
Well, we have lots of great slides, but without the projector, you won't be able to see all the pretty images.
Because it's not recognized.
Joel, you're good at sketching, right? You can sketch out the design live.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Let me unplug it.
Is it the wrong input, perhaps? Can we switch that with this? I don't know if I click on it. Probably here.
Just go to Jonathan Amherst.
Well, it's a great time for refreshments, so if you haven't grabbed a sandwich, help yourself.
You're doing pretty good, Brian.
Yeah, I just texted Tim a minute ago.
Brian, do you have any good jokes?
Maybe just say that we're going to move for a second. Oh, got it. Okay, never mind. Thank you, Mark.
Okay, so this is the agenda that I reviewed with you previously. So hopefully this is our video.
It's the video. It's cute.
How do you play the video?
And you just scroll to the start date.
Our Our vision for the Reading Center for Active Living, or RECAL, is for it to be a community asset that will serve not just the mission of Elder and Human Services in Reading, but our Recreation and Veterans divisions as well. It will foster health and wellness by promoting social interaction, strengthen our community, and provide a point of access to programs and services for all ages. A community needs assessment by the University of Massachusetts in 2017 demonstrated a key area of need, our town's aging population, where in the coming decades, the number of residents aged 60 and older will increase to make up as much as 29% of our population. Already, more than 1/3 of our households have at least one person who is 60 or older. And because many of our seniors live alone, our aging demographics present key concerns around social loneliness, household safety, and economic security. Meanwhile, the existing Pleasant Street Center has been deficient to the needs of our community for many years. The 140-year-old building has accessibility issues like no bathroom on the main floor, no one-on-one space, insufficient kitchen facilities, no dedicated spaces for activities like art, fitness, social events, or a library, and is unable to run more than one large program at once. The current center is lacking both as a senior center and as a community hub for recreation and events. Our town's permanent building committee, consisting of town leaders, committee members, and volunteers, is overseeing the project, which aims to create an inclusive, welcoming, and supportive space that meets the interests and needs of the growing senior population, while simultaneously meeting the town's need for additional recreational space, including a gym for all age groups. To ensure RECAL is a place for our entire community, the committee is leading the project with these guiding principles. A designated senior hub, meant to meet the needs of Reading's 60-plus residents with full-day, evening, and weekend hours. To be age-friendly and welcoming to everyone. Designated space for recreation and veterans offices and gym activities with opportunities for all ages. Safety and accessibility inside and out. Maximal access to programs and services to those who are unserved or underserved, all while being environmentally conscious. The RECAL project is anticipated to go to town meeting for approval in the spring, with public approval and a special election to follow. Before then, there are several ways you can engage with the RECAL project, including an additional public forum scheduled for early 2025, through public newsletters on the project like Pleasantries and the Town Manager Minute, and by signing up for notifications and diving into the project details on the RECAL website. Just navigate to the Departments section of the Town of Reading website, then click on the RECAL dedicated page under the Public Services tab.
Excellent. So hopefully that was not only loud, but also provided some clarity. So how did we get to this point? As you can see here from the timeline, the project has been developing now for almost a decade. Began in 2015 with some updated demographic data that called attention to the growing number of seniors in the town. And then the University of Massachusetts was brought in to study the needs of this changing population and help identify how Reading can better serve this part of the community. With this high-level information, Reading then established the RECAL Committee in 2021 to further explore how these ideas could be incorporated into the town. This was done through community surveys, public forums, and by researching how other communities have addressed similar needs. And Mark Doxer will talk more about that in a little bit. Once the needs and goals were established, the town brought in BH+A architects to develop a building program and determine how the project goals could be met. This work concluded with the study of the 3 most desirable project sites, one of which was this location that we're sitting in right here, and ultimately the selection of the preferred site for the project. So with that defined program and selected site in hand, BH+A has begun the configuration of the facility and determining what the building will best, what building will best suit the needs and goals of the community. And we'll be going over that in a little bit. So I'd like to turn it over to Mark Doxer to fill us in on all the important work that the RECAL Committee did between 2021 and 2023.
Thanks. Hi, folks. I think that I need to sit so that I can get picked up by RCTV as well.
So really what I want to do is talk a little bit about the why we're here and what we want to talk about. And then I'm going to hand it over and we'll talk more from an architectural point of view about what are we talking about? What's it going to look like? What are we proposing? Why are we proposing it that way? So I see a lot of new faces in the room. So some of you have heard a little bit about ReCalc, which was the Reading Center for Active Living Committee. And that was, I think, I'm seeing my fellow members in the room, fellow former members. I think there are 7 citizens that got together. And our task was to understand what's happening in terms of the demographics, how things are changing, to look at other communities and see what they're doing to support their population. And one of the key pieces of what we talked about was our charter from the select board. And that was to focus on the age 60 plus community. So we hear senior, elder, 60 plus, all sorts of different terms. But the notion here is that this is very inclusive, supporting members of this community who perhaps their kids are now finished with school. They may or may not be at retirement or have been retired for a while. And to offer programs, services, activities to support what they want and need. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we did on ReCalc, just to give you that background. And then again, we'll talk more about the architectural aspects and some other things from there. So our focus here was to really look at the need that's going on based on, as Brian mentioned, more than 10 years of work. We've had all sorts of studies come back that said, you need to be doing more to support your community of age 60 plus. That was 10 years ago. What's happened since then is the population of this community has continued to grow with age 60 plus. That's the fastest growing portion of the community. There we go. So I noticed that the video said 29%, we've got 30%. It's very substantial. And I don't see Marilyn in the room, but I think Marilyn might even say it's going, there she is, might be going higher and faster. This is the fastest growing segment.
Higher and faster.
Higher and faster. There we go. The space is part of the problem in terms of what we need to do here. We want to reach more members of the 60 plus community. So there are certainly folks that have different physical capabilities. There are folks who are already attending the center, and that's wonderful. And the numbers of those people, which I'll talk about in a moment, have been going up dramatically. Post-COVID and even compared to pre-COVID levels. More and more people are trying to participate in the activities, which is wonderful. We need more space to be able to do it. It needs to be more accessible and inclusive. So what are the space constraints? What are we talking about? So this lovely building is about 4,550 square feet of usable space. This room that we're in now is the only large room that there is, which means if you want to have an activity that has a fair number of people, you need to get in line. There are only a certain number of things we can do, and then they have to be cleaned up in between before the next one can happen, which is very, very limiting in terms of what's happening. The capacity, 60 people with tables and chairs, 85 people with chairs only. We have more people that want to participate than that. On the second floor, we have 2 program rooms, a lounge that can hold 16 people if you have a table, 20 if it's just chairs, and a kitchen art room that holds 12 people at the table, 15 with chairs. Many of our programs have wait lists because there just isn't enough space. Center usage is increasing. Over last year, up 11,753. And Chris sent me the numbers, and I apologize, Chris, I only looked at them very, very quickly. But even since that time, the usage continues to go up. The number of people using the center continues to go up. Here are some examples of some of the issues that we're facing. You've got the tight kitchen. The multi-purpose room that we're in right now, you can see the other rooms if you were able to take a tour, and I hope you were able to take a tour. You can see, this is a lovely facility. It's just not sufficient for the needs that we have. We have no private space. We have an office in the hallway. We do registration in the stairwell. We make do with what we have as best we can. Nurse and senior caseworkers, there's not any privacy or one-on-one space that exists today. waiting areas in the hallways, the game room, note the pool cues leaning up against the table. That was not done artistically. That's because you can't hold the cue all the way out. There's not enough room. It's too small. And you can see our computer room in the basement, which has not been functioning as well as we'd like. So, no bathroom on the first floor, no private offices, no one-on-one space-constrained kitchen. Can't run multiple programs at the same time. No dedicated space for art, fitness, social, and library. We have very limited parking here downtown. We've had issues with a smell of gas being reported by people that are inside the building, and facilities are doing a great job working to understand it, to fix it, to see what's going on. And there are some aging systems that are in this building that will need some attention. We Recalc went out and we did a lot of different kinds of activities. I'll talk to you about a couple of them right now. One of them is, aside from the studies, we also did a series of community surveys. They validated that facilities and programming is not sufficient for age 60 plus and getting worse as the population grows. We did a survey. There were 1,472 responses to the survey that we did. Some of the things that stood out were very interesting, and one was a very important question of, should it be a senior center or a community center with dedicated space focused on the age 60 plus population? And you can see some of the results. For folks age 70 plus, they preferred the senior center. Nearly half of the respondents preferred an all-ages community center, including designated space and programming for residents age 60 plus. And if you look at respondents under age 60, they preferred an all-ages community center. So the bottom line results here kind of indicate, hey, if you focus on this all-ages community center with this dedicated space and resources, that best meets the needs of the community. We held 3 community forums, more than 170 participants that came to those. All sorts of things talked about how people see this community, how people see the town of Reading. Close-knit, feel safe, social and cultural great things, close to Boston, nice downtown resources, and some minuses. Housing costs, tax rate, getting around. As we were starting to envision the center, the discussion was of an age-inclusive space, meeting lots of needs, very flexible and adaptable, and a discussion about challenging, interesting, and active programs. So that's for all populations. Age 60 plus, you heard a discussion of different times of day. So not just daytime activities, evening activities, weekend activities, and the ability to go cross generations as well. Specific needs, again, you're going to hear these words over and over, but I'll try not to say them more than 1 or 2 more times. Social space, meals, computer classes, a movie room or movie space, evening and weekend programs, one-on-one meeting space. We know parking and transportation are issues that will have to be dealt with whether it's a new location or if it's not a new location. Those are problems that still are plaguing us right now. Dedicated space, and even the notion of how do we deal with the cost issues, cost of programs, low and no cost with a strong preference. We really had a great opportunity with the ARPA money that came to this community. We were able to utilize that to offer a variety of programs here at the Pleasant Street Center and not have to charge for a lot of those activities or charge minimal fees. That was great. That's part of what's encouraging more and more people to participate. So a couple of things specifically on the study. It's available on the website, so I don't want to go into too much detail. But what you can see is the light blue on the left that's inside the red circle. You can see by age groups where the focus was on an all-ages community center. So as I mentioned, in the population's ages 70 plus, certainly the focus was on senior center only. And then you can see in the other folks that responded, more and more interest in that all-ages center. On the right-hand side, we asked where should the center be? And there were a number of folks who said, hey, I'd love it to be in the downtown. It's about 30%, kind of this blue segment right there. Located outside of the downtown is the lighter blue segment at 10%. No preference is the yellow at 43%. So clearly, it would have been lovely to do it downtown. But unfortunately, the town already doesn't have many properties that could satisfy the need that are downtown. Here we talked about what the usage would be. If we build it, will you use it? And the answer is yes. So if you take a look at, again, inside this red circle over here, All Ages Community Center, including designated space and programming for residents age 60 plus, 76% of the respondents said they'd use it. On the right-hand side, there was a question that was raised saying, hey, would you pay for it? The answer came back, yes. So would you pay $100, $200, $300, more than $300? What you can see in there is that there's a focus in that range saying, hey, in the kind of $200 plus range, there are a lot of folks that said they would support it. And again, this is an all ages survey that went out. We then went out and we looked at 15 other peer communities. So either community centers, senior centers, and other communities to understand what do they do, what are the best practices, what are the things that we should be looking for as we're thinking about building a new center. We also surveyed them to see what kinds of facilities, what kinds of programs did they do. And again, all this information is on the website. It's all available so you can see it more in depth. But you can see that this notion of having multiple programs at once is very important. Thinking about wheelchair accessible is very important. You know, there are some of these big ones, individual counseling areas, creative arts room, reception area. It's interesting also, you see, for example, the gym, it shows, 6 out of 9 don't are the ones that we looked at. We asked folks when we went out, and we said, so as you think about what you've done, what you've built in the community, is there something you do differently if you had a chance to do it again? And many of them answered, yeah, we'd have a gym. Other things that popped out. The average peer community spends quite a bit more on their elder services than the town of Reading does at this point. Now, the town of Reading has been increasing. You can see from in fiscal 22, $220,000. It's getting up to almost double that at this point in terms of what's going on. But compared to our peer communities, we're spending substantially less. Transportation and parking are big issues that we've been looking into. Some of you may have seen different communities announcing their almost Uber-like programs where they've set up their own little systems. There's the Salem Skipper, and I think there's another one in Burlington that just formed. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to need to be looking at also to get transportation to the center. Food prep and meals is a big activity going on at a lot of centers also that we're currently not tackling. So what's missing, and again, this will be the last time I reiterate, space for multiple programmed activities, social space, dedicated areas for arts, technology, and gaming, more parking, outdoor activities, evening hours, a gym and a walking track that can be used all the time, indoor conditions rather than outdoor conditions. More usable kitchen space, more storage, better accessibility, private offices. One of the things that we think really makes sense here is bringing different aspects of the community together, different priorities. So obviously age 60 plus adults, intergenerational programs, outdoor rec and indoor rec, and community health improvement plan. A lot of the mental health issues, social health issues are things that having the right facilities and programming can address much better than we currently can as a community. Oh, sorry, I just want to jump to the last one. Another activity that's very important here is veteran services. This is a facility and opportunity to better address their needs, along with elder human services and recreation. So, how do we go about finding the right location? What do we go through? So we looked at 6 sites. The top 3 were looked at more carefully. We went through a ranking process, and what you'll see here is all of the different groups and committees that got together, reviewed the different locations, and then each of them, interestingly, voted unanimously that Simon's Way was the preferred site. It includes the Recalc Committee, the Council on Aging, the Permanent Building Committee, the H+A Architects, TTH as the owner's project manager, and the Select Board voted 5-0 in favor of Simon's Way as the preferred site. And with that, I turn it over to Joel.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to stand. If they can't see me on Zoom, that's okay. Because I need to point at the screen here. We're Mark said a lot of what is in the beginning of this, so I'm not going to repeat too much, but I just want to remind folks that we're at the fourth step of a four-stage process, and the first 3 months of the project last October to the end of the year last year, were spent figuring out what those spaces were that would meet those needs that Mark just discussed. So that's programming, what to include, and if you include that, how big of a room do you need, what types of rooms, and that was all done and worked through a year ago, and that's the basis of what we're seeing tonight. So tonight we're at step 4 is what will it look like when it's built and you accommodate all these needs Mark described. It's really a great process. We're working on this, and last week we got an email where they really clarified the guiding principles of RECAL. It's all very synergistic and it's all working like a machine. We're getting information back from Council on Aging, Recreation, other staff. It's really informing all the things about a building, from the energy use to the programming. We've ended up with a working program. That program from last year isn't frozen in rock. It's evolving. It's changing. We're adjusting rooms here and there and making accommodations as people see how the plan works out. And it'll continue to be evolving through conversations like this. We went through that process of figuring out a site, and the only thing I want to say about that is we've done this for 30 years. There's no perfect site. There's good sites, there's great sites, but there's never the perfect site. There's always something that you can find as a fault about a site. So the best thing to do is to find and identify what those issues are and then try to overcome them. And it's hard to see it, but part of that site ranking process that we went through with Council on Aging, Recreation, all those different groups, had criteria that identified what's good and what's bad about the site, and so that we could, as a team, identify, well, maybe this is a shortfall of the Simmons Way site, what can we do to improve on that shortfall? So the very methodical analysis and evaluation has a method to the madness. So where are we on schematic design? We're very quickly trying to get through December where we can put this job out to our cost estimators and TEH's cost estimators to put a cost in front of the community and evaluate what we've been doing for the last year and a half and get much better numbers on it, and then use that to inform the design some more. So it's not as if the process is stopping here in the summer, but we want to bring cost into the equation in January and use that to inform the project. This is an aerial view. There you have Burbank Site Arena. There you have Range Road. Simmons Road comes up here and then it forks off. Simmons Road goes up to the playing fields on the top. Range Road goes to the shooting range at the end of the site. This is your side of the building, so the building's close to the end. The drop-off comes in at this point, so the cars don't have to go too far to get to the drop-off. There's a nice parking lot. We're showing 94 spaces there. The opportunity to add 14 spaces here if you need them in the future. And then at the end, you'll see the area that's designated, not funded by this project, not part of the project, but looked at as a master plan manner so that we can address some of the issues that come with a joint use facility. So you get 8 pickleball courts and a separate parking lot for pickleball, so you don't have to worry about pickleball players using the community center or RECAL or the senior center parking spaces. And you see this white area there. There's a shade structure, there's a storage structure, there's a acoustical barrier at that end of the site. The whole goal is to move the pickleball remote from the building, much like you have on a highway, create acoustical barriers so the noise doesn't drift over to here, and to create some quiet spaces outdoors that are well fenced. So you really won't have a problem between the two functions. You can go to Sandwich and you can see exactly this same size building, gym, senior center, 12 pickleball and 4 tennis courts, much closer to the building. You can't hear a word. The windows are quiet. No one complains. In fact, everybody loves it because you can come in one shot, stop, and shop. So as I mentioned, the pickleball is not part of the funding, but it's on a drawing so that we can address these things, noise, parking, and really get a comprehensive solution to the site. Okay, this is the first floor of the building. That's the second floor of the building. And a lot of talk about the gym and the gym being part of the community aspect, which it is. But I guarantee you it's a part of the senior center. They will love the pickleball, they'll love the track. We have seniors using the basketball courts. It's really part of it. It's not there to attract the rest of the community. I think as you get into this project, you'll find socialization, recreation is all enhanced by that program. But that being said, we've still taken into heart the idea of creating a senior hub. And this end of the building is that senior hub. You'll come in the building, and here's your main program rooms. There are 2 program rooms on this first floor. There are 2 more on the second floor. And each one is just 200 square feet smaller than this room. Each room is 1,000 square feet. I think this room is 1,200 square feet. So they're very large program rooms. You have 4 of them. In that senior hub, you have your own restrooms. Every restroom is a single user, handicap accessible, private, clean, no gang shared restrooms with anyone else using the building. The senior offices are here, senior center offices. Why are they there? They have great views out to the parking lot, to the entry of the building. When folks come in the middle of winter and someone slips on the ice, there's 3 people right here that have their eyes looking at inside, outside, and monitoring that building. It's really a great opportunity in the building. And then at this end of the building, you sort of work your way from the lobby to the program to the more recreational part. We have the cafe lounge, there's a coffee shop, coffee counter, several seating areas, different types of seating areas, and I'll show you renderings, and a card room at this end of the building. Why is it there? Because this is really the beautiful end of the site. You can sit in those rooms, lots of windows, looking at the beautiful landscape that's out here at this end of the site. We put the gym and the kitchen for the multi-purpose room on the other end of the site, which is a long-range road. That's not as nice of a view, so you build in zone to maximize its orientation. The main multi-purpose room, come into the lobby, you can get right into the multi-purpose room. Not unlike here, but there's at least a bigger lobby. You come in, you want to hit a program in the multi-purpose room, it's right there. And if you want to use the gym, then the gym is on that end. So you should sort of see a line going through the building in the middle. This is the senior zone, that's the mixed zone, and I'll show you how that goes together. Second floor is very similar. Again, you have your program rooms, restrooms that support the program rooms, but you have a billiard room. So now people will say, well, you need 2 billiard tables. And in the last 10 years that we've been sort of adding billiard rooms in these senior centers, they've grown to where Franklin, Winchester, Wilmington, they all have in senior center tournaments. And when you have those friendly tournaments, you need 2 pool tables. But it's a way. My point is, and I didn't make it very well, is socialization comes out of the programs. It's not just putting chairs in a hallway and thinking, oh, now people will socialize. It's creating spaces in the building like the lounge, like the card room, like the billiards room, like an outdoor deck on the second floor, where things can happen and the socialization comes out of the program. Think about a kitchen. When you're in the kitchen at Thanksgiving, what's happening in that kitchen, socialization. So we'll design the kitchen for the senior center to offer that opportunity. And I'll show you pictures of how that's done. So here's a diagram of the front of the building. And I know we've gone a little bit far with the renderings, but we didn't want people to look at plans and say they didn't understand the building. But that's the main door. There's a canopy that comes out to the street, so someone in a wheelchair can go into the building, undercover, no snow, no ice. And this side of the building, the white side with the green top, that's the senior center hub. The lobby's in the middle, and to the right is your community room, multi-purpose room, and the gym is behind that. What that does is it creates your main entry, but if kids want to come in and use that gym at night, or if there's a men's league that wants to use the gym at 10 at night, there's a B entry. They can all come in and use the gym. You don't have to worry about them coming into the lobby of the building, walking through the building, messing up things. They can come, they can go. And in fact, there's their own restrooms at that end of the building. If you want to have a town meeting, select board meeting in the multi-purpose room, you can do that. Again, they don't have to use the restrooms that are part of the senior center. There's the restrooms down there by the B section that serve those functions. So there's a way, good neighbors make good fences make good neighbors. And that's the idea here, is to zone this building so spaces can be shared and you can have good neighbors. So when you come in the building, very diagrammatic, but you have one. Who's there to say hello, to greet you, to organize you? Here's where you sign in to my senior center. And back here, there's the directory of today's events. And here, number 4 is going into the multi-purpose room. Why did we put the directory back there? It could be behind the desk here, it could be on the wall here, but when we put the directory back there, boom. I'm looking at the program, and there is my senior hub, and I can go to the program, I can go to the card room, I can go to the billiard room, I can get anywhere in the building that I want to, and this is telling me how to do it. So it really draws folks into the building, it organizes you, and the organization of the building is super simple. There's this core that runs here, to my back is the gym and the multi-purpose room. I go to the end of that hallway, there's a large lounge. We had a smaller lounge. We met with the COA last week. They said, we really think you need to have more space for socialization. But there are 3 different zones. There's this front zone for coffee, a center zone with fireplace for more casual seating, and then the back zone for maybe working on your laptop, working on your collaborating with other folks. 3 types of seating spaces within that one zone with a coffee shop, because the kitchen is at the far end of the building. The other thing that's nice is that at this end of the building, this whole lounge opens up to the outdoor patio, and the outdoor patio will have seats, umbrellas, and it has, you don't see it on the renderings, but it'll have another fence to make sure that, hey, you're not seeing the traffic in the parking lot, but you're not also hearing that pickleball noise when you're in your patio space. Card game, another social space. And I'll tell you that this has its own door and soundproof walls, because the loudest room is the mahjong room in the senior center. The bricks are cracking and people are having fun. It's a place to be seen. We have 4 tables in there. You could get another table in there for seating up to 20 should you want. This is Falmouth. Falmouth chose to put the billiard and the cards in the same room. But that's not universal, because when you break the cue balls in pool, it makes a lot of noise and that can be disturbing. So Westboro, Situate, all of our other projects begin to separate out games and billiards. But not everybody does it, because you can also schedule things, but that's been the decision that was made working with COA on your project. Create a separate room for billiard. And this is only a cartoon to show you there's plenty of room in that billiard space on the second floor. to put 2 full pool tables. So it's just for size, but it's also, the idea is you don't have to put this on the ground floor, because if you're gonna play billiards, you're coming to the building to play that game, so it's in the upstairs in the more remote corner where it's quiet, it's not bothering anyone, but people will go to it because they're coming to play that. You don't have to put it front and center the way you might put some of the other programs. And that generic room really can be exciting. We can pick out a style, an interior design style, and work with your groups to make that billiard room really have some character and have it be fun, and it'll attract the male audience, which I have a project in Sudbury. They said, we don't want a pool table, we don't want billiards. They went out to look at Situate, they couldn't find one guy in the senior center, they went upstairs, and there was a whole men's club in the billiard room playing pool. They said, well, we have to have a billiard room too. So it's a way to get folks in. Okay, you saw in the plans a flex room. A flex room is a program room. It's a 1,000 square foot room, but this is a special floor. You can put these types of chairs and tables on it, but you can also do Zumba, chair yoga. It's a cushioned floor. It's not a full athletic floor, but it's a flex space. So it makes one room that much more valuable to your users. Typical program room doesn't have that. This is really just shown to give you a sense of how big the program rooms are. They're quite large, easily get 30 to 40 folks into a room like that. I know there's a lot of concern about the size of these rooms, so we quickly put together a photograph of what that room might be like. Okay, this is the program room. It's basically 2 sizes of these. So each half there's a divided wall in the middle that's one of these rooms, and then another one on the side. And then where that line is in the ceiling, the wall comes down out of the ceiling, and you can have 2 small rooms if you want to. I love this project. This is the Senior Center and Youth Center in Andover. And they said, instead of just having a typical multi-purpose room, we want a multi-purpose room that can be for drama. So you see that it has built-in lights. It has an acoustic ceiling for that. It can be for dining, all the things that you see in this room. But with big closets, you can store anything outside of that room. So they have wrestling mats, and the kids come in after school and use it for gymnastics and athletic programs. There's a way that we will talk to your residents, to the users, to the Council on Aging, Recreation, on what's the best way to make that program room the best that it can be for Reading, because each project really wants to be unique. And I mentioned socialization. These kitchens are really designed with relatively simple appliances, so volunteers can get in here and work. They have tables in the middle, whether they're big or small. This is a professional kitchen. It's not really that attractive to users, and you have to be a professional chef to use it. The idea is to bring people in, and you can do meals on wheels. You can prepare congregate meals. You can serve if you have catered events. You can bring anybody in that kitchen. And that table in some centers is twice as wide, and it's used for cooking classes, intergenerational recipe sharing, all sorts of programming. No space in the building is without a programming purpose. So the kitchen isn't just a kitchen, it's a program space. And last, there's a room on the second floor, which I'll go back to the plan and it might make a little more sense. It's arts and crafts, but we have another little room up there that we're suggesting, do you want to think about having maybe a little maker space? These have digital arts and crafts materials, 3D printers. Think about your building 20 years from now, 30 years from now. We don't want it to be out of date. We want to have a flexible space. We want to think about it in the long term, and that's what some folks are thinking about for their arts and crafts programs. Okay, and that's the gym. Pickleball, 3 pickleball courts in the gym. A gym is a gym. The basketball court has a certain dimension, so this is the smallest size gym we can make that has an official basketball court plus 3 official pickleball courts. The divider curtain could come down in the center of the room. Now in the morning you could have a preschool program on one side, you can have seniors playing pickleball on the other side. The track is the most highly social space in the building. Do you ever see anybody walking around a track by themselves? It's always in a group. And you may see people in wheelchairs being pushed around the track by a group that meets 3 days a week. They go through and they talk, and it's a social event. I didn't point it out, but the plans show seating areas in the corner of the track where there's no walking area. So again, if you're walking around the track, you get tired, you want to take a break, have a chat, you can do that. But the socialization is also in a place of activity. It's not sort of artificial, it's integrated into the programming of the space. This is a bird's eye view, so here's your patio, it's not fully furnished. Here's the fence that would separate that from pickleball noise in the parking lot. What we're showing is there's sort of, the building's broken up into 3 smaller buildings. And here's that view. This would be another acoustic and sight barrier to focus views into this more scenic area of the building. But this is the senior hub end of the building that has all those programs, the lounge, the outdoor spaces. This is the other end of the building. The kitchen, its own entry. The kitchen entry doesn't have to come through the main lobby. The garbage coming out of the kitchen doesn't have to go through the lobby. It really makes a lot of sense to have a kitchen at this end of the building. And then the gym is on the far end, and the gym has a big barn door so you can come out and have Zumba. You can have a kids program outdoors in the spring and fall. Because Zumba and yoga are hugely popular in the gym because you got more space than 1,000 or 1,200 square foot program room. Okay, let me just quickly go back to the plan and just reorganize that discussion. So, the senior end, I just showed you the pictures of this end of the building. The second floor, the gym, and there you can see in the corner of the gym some suggested seating areas. In this corner of the gym, there's stretching, get loose in the morning before you're walking. And I didn't mention it, but there's that program space that we think could be a wonderful maker space right off the lobby. Again, if you come into that lobby, you see virtually everything in the building, including the veteran space. Veteran space is on the second floor, right at the corner by the stairs. So veterans that come in have easy access to their space. It's not taking prime space out of the senior center, but it's private space. They don't have to feel like they're walking through the senior center because veterans aren't just seniors. You can have someone from Afghanistan, current veterans that are younger, that are coming for different programs. They'll just come in and get to their veterans office, which this pointer's not showing up well, but it's right there off of the stair. And again, you come in the building, you see it right there when you come in. So, I hope that wasn't too lengthy, and I'll turn it back to Brian for a wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. So as you can see, lots of great ideas for this facility so far. And it's really the perfect time to get involved and start providing your feedback, because this ultimately is for all of you as residents and for the town. And your feedback will help shape the design and the overall outcome of the project. So where do we go from here? Go to my next slide. There we go. So this is where we are here, all the way on the left at our first public forum. And as you can see, we have another forum scheduled for January and then one in March. The January forum will be an update on the design. We'll start to get an initial sense on what the cost will look like. And then in the March forum, we'll have completed 2 full cost estimates, and we'll have the full project budget at that point. That'll basically take us through this schematic design phase. So going through the initial design, putting a price on it, doing any necessary refinements. The next stage is that it's up to you. Is the town ready to move forward with this? Is there enough support? And we definitely hope that the answer is yes, because this seems like a great project for this community. So assuming it moves forward, we then move into the design development phase. So at that stage of the project, there's still more design refinements that happen. This early stage sets the overall design concept and the price for the project. But during the design development stage, that's when we go through the selections of the floor materials, the windows, the HVAC systems, and so forth. So there's still quite a bit more work to do. And that's then followed by the construction documents phase. So during that time, Joel and his team will make sure that all the ideas that were presented by the community have been captured in those drawings, and that there's a very well knit together set of documents that people can bid on, and that's going to help to protect the town as you go through construction, to make sure there aren't a lot of extra costs associated with it, or that things don't go wrong during the construction phase. Then we move into bidding, and then finally, the facility starts getting built. So based on the timeline we're looking at now, these can still change. We would expect that if everything goes smoothly, we could start in 2026, and that by early 2028, we could be moving into that new facility. So we do have a more detailed schedule as well that you can access through the project materials if you want to dig into it, but that gives you the general overview. So how can you get involved? There are a number of ways that you can get involved, and what I would suggest is the first step is to check out the website that's been set up. So we have a new address, readingma.gov/recal. If you go to that website, there's a number of areas on the left where you can explore the full project details. So I mentioned earlier that this project has been developed for nearly a decade. When we first were brought on board, we had to review all the information that had been done so far, and I can tell you that we were quite impressed. The town has really done a great job of understanding what the needs of the community are, and working together as Recal did with the public forums and surveys to get feedback and to set that initial program, and also to look at a great number of sites. So I think the town really left no stone unturned when they were looking for the best location for this new facility. So you can access the details of all that information on the project website. And if you navigate to the Get Involved section, you'll see this area on the right. And one of the key things is to provide feedback. So I had some discussions with some individuals here earlier today. We're also going to be looking at other ways to get feedback besides through email, because we recognize that there are some people that don't use email regularly. So we'll be setting something up to address that. We have a communications group that's part of the Permanent Building Committee that meets bi-weekly to address communications issues for the project and to figure out how to both get the information out, but also, even more importantly, to get feedback. Of course, you can attend the public forums, just like you were here tonight. We had a great showing, but I would love to see even more faces next time. So please reach out to your neighbors, your friends, tell them about the project, invite them to participate and share their feedback. And then on the website, you can also sign up for project notifications. That way you'll stay up to date with any new information that's been added or any upcoming events. So I'll now turn it back over to the town First, we're going to have Joe from the Facilities Department talk a little about the management of capital projects, and then Sharon will talk about some of the finance aspects, and then Pat here will talk about the Permanent Building Committee and their role in these public projects.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Joe Huggins, I'm Director of Facilities for the Town of Reading. I've been here for just about 19 years this January, and we're going to talk a little bit about the capital improvement program. Reading has a So Reading has a 10-year capital improvement program, and we've, every year we go through the buildings and we assess the condition of all the equipment, the roofs, the windows, any of the HVAC equipment, and what we do is we meet with the officials on the school side, as well as the town manager, the town accountant, and department heads, and talk about the particular 17 buildings that we're responsible for. So what we do is we try to gauge what the useful life of a particular piece of equipment is, and then we go ahead and we look at how it's performing over time, and if it's becoming a problem, it goes under the capital plan. Most recent project, for instance, is the Parker Middle School group that we just completed last summer. We have a really robust preventive maintenance program here in Reading. We maintain, like I said, 17 buildings. There's 10 municipal buildings, 10 municipal and 8 school buildings. And through the preventive maintenance program, which is really what drives our department, we're able to get in early and we see how the systems are performing, and our contractors will tell us if a piece of equipment is starting to show aging, needs to be targeted for a replacement, and then that's how we plug it on the capital plan. It's kind of how we get to where we are, like with the senior center and other projects. It's two things that drive, like a building project. One of them is the programming needs for the building change over time. The demographics can change, and then just the building becomes getting to the closer end of its useful life. And that's when we look to, do a project like this. The last building that we did was completed in 2015 is the Reading Public Library. That was a complete gut reno, and in addition, the building is now 35,000 square feet. That is the last building that we did. Prior to that, you can see that we replaced 4 school renewals in 6 years, from 2000 to 2006 when I started here in Reading. So that's pretty much where we are. That's it.
And if you want to hand it to Sharon.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sharon Engstrom. I'm the CFO and town accountant. I'm going to go over some of our financials, or how this would work in our town. The town of Reading is in strong financial standing. We have very strong financial policies. One of those policies is that we spend 5% of our budget every year on debt and capital. We try to borrow as little as possible and do as much as we can within the operating budget so that we save on the interest. We also have a FinCom policy that states that if a project's going to cost, or we're going to borrow more than $4 million, that we will ask for excluded debt. We would ask for a vote of the residents to do that, because it's far too difficult to do it within the operating budget when projects get large. It really squeezes out the capital that we're able to do year to year. So the town of Reading has a AAA bond rating, and they cite that we pay our debt off very quickly. We don't carry a lot of debt. Currently, there's about $29 million of debt across the whole town, and only about 11.7 in the general fund, 14 million in the water department, and about 2 million in the sewer. So we really do pay our debt off very quickly. Obviously, with excluded debt, we're going to have an eye on the impact on the tax bill. It's far too soon to talk about what that might be with the 2 projects, but once we have final costs, we will definitely be giving you some idea of how that would impact your tax bill. We will obviously be giving you very different scenarios depending on what the term is that we're considering. So the longer you borrow, the longer it stays as an excluded debt, the longer it hits your tax bill. So if there's a way to make it a reasonable number so that we can borrow for a smaller term, like say for this particular project where it's not as big as Kiln, we're going to entertain all the options, a 15-year borrowing, a 20-year borrowing, a 25 or 30, just to see what those numbers look like and just try and keep the number reasonable for the taxpayer. In terms of tax increases, these two projects are the two major projects, the Recal and the Kiln, but we do have to consider the fact that some of our buildings haven't been renovated in years, so we do want to think about that when we entertain the term, because we will have other buildings that will have needs as we move along. So that's the gist of what I wanted to say to you, unless anybody has questions. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. We did have 3 excluded debts in the past few years. We had the high school, which fell off last year, Wood End, which fell off last year, and we have 1 final debt payment for the library. So after this fiscal year, there will be no excluded debt until these projects are approved and we move forward. Yeah, with the 3 excluded debts coming off, about $300 is saved by the average taxpayer, and an average taxpayer would be a property value of about $860,000 home. So about $300 falls off. The only issue is that your bill goes up every year, so it kind of gets buried in the increase. So it's kind of hard to see, but your bill would be $300 larger than what you see next year if had those not fell off.
I'm Jane. I'm the Microphone Transportation Association.
Thank you. I'm Pat Tompkins. I'm the chair of the Permanent Building Committee. The last speaker, I'll try to be brief. I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about who we are and what we do. I'm going to run through the members. Again, I'm the chair of the Permanent Building Committee. Nancy Toomey is the vice chair. Nancy is a local architect who's probably designed half of the new houses in Reading in the last dozen years, or that last couple of decades maybe. She's also about a 30-year town meeting member as well. Nancy's in the back there. A couple right here. John Coop's retired, which is good because he has a lot of time to dive into issues. He's a structural engineer, which means he's wicked smart. And when he latches onto an issue, John's not afraid to pull any punches at a meeting and tell people what he thinks. So I like to call John our secret weapon. John's right here. Our other members, Kirk McCormick, is he's a construction attorney. It's good to have him in the room to kind of keep us between the rails, which is important. And Greg Stepler's our 5th Permanent Building Committee member. Greg's an MEP specialist that works for Turner Construction. Anybody knows Turner is a very large, excellent firm. We also have 2 associate members on the committee. Ari Greenberg. Ari's a mechanical engineer who specializes in sustainable design and sustainable energy systems. We talk about geothermal wells, solar panels. He's light years ahead of the rest of us. Mike Nazzaro is another associate member. Mike's a program manager. He serves in kind of the same role as Brian to my left. So it's good to have him around. It's a little bit of a check on Brian too. As part of the bylaws in our charter, when we have a project under construction or we have a project given to us, there are 2 additional temporary members added that are added from the sponsoring agency. So in this case, it's Mark Doxer of the Select Board and Nancy Zimlack, who's the chair of the Council on Aging. So they're temporary members that are part of the committee as well. So that's who we are. What we do. So what we do, our role is to administer all large construction projects for the town of Reading. first and foremost, everything we do is a public meeting, it's a public and open process. And as we go through the process, we will help the town, work with town staff to administer the project. We'll work with them to hire the architect and owner's project manager. We'll review invoices, improve invoices, any amendments to contracts will go through our committee. And as we get through design, we'll also, we'll have input to the designers and review documents. For this project specifically, so this project was given to the Permanent Building Committee this past summer. It had already gone through a lot of the steps that Mark covered, and what we've done since it's been given to us, we've worked with town staff to hire TTH. Joel, EH, will say, was already on board. I'll give a quick shout out to town staff without naming any names because I know that I'll leave a bunch of people out. But whether we're working with facilities or senior center staff or town staff, it's always a pleasure. They do a great job. As a town, we are really lucky. We have a really solid staff across the board. But we work with town staff to hire the OPM. We dove into the site selection. A lot of people asked, well, you've got all this information. 3 other boards have already selected Simon's Way. Do you guys need to weigh in on this? And I said, you haven't met my committee yet. Yeah, we want to weigh in on this. And we came to the same conclusion, but I think we probably asked a lot of different questions. We took the matrix and it wasn't good enough for us. We had to mishmash it around, change some percentages. But again, we took our own run at it and we ended up at the same place. And as we go through schematic design, we have multiple working groups. We have a stakeholders working group that's working with the designer. We have a communications working group and a sustainability working group that are working with our consultants. That's all I have, and I think we're on to questions. I'll hand this back to Brian.
I'm going to be Phil Donahue and bring the microphone around to people so that you can stay in your seat.
Thank you very much for your presentation. This was really very informative, and I really appreciate seeing all the design. And I just have a question, because I'm going to make an assumption that all those pictures we saw of the senior centers, those are senior centers that are actively enforced, being used, and they all look relatively brand new. So my question about our center is, how are we going to ensure that this center meets the ADA design standards? The ADA has been a federal law since 1990. The design standards were last totally revamped in 2010, and as I saw those pictures, inaccessible, I'd love to see the bathrooms, inaccessible kitchens, the stair rails are supposed to have a 12-inch extension of the railing to meet the design standards. That was not seen in any of those photographs, and those are just 2 examples. So what are we going to do to meet the ADA design standards, especially if this is for people over 60? Disability increases with age. Over 26% of the United States population right now is covered under the ADA. So that's my question, and I know it's going to be the architects, the building committee, it's all of us.
Well, at the end of
That's a great question.
At the design phase, it's not working.
Chris, do you have the microphone?
At the end of the design phase, at each phase, there's a separate peer review audit of the building for ADA and Mass Architecture Access Board requirements. And that's true on all the projects. So at the end of this phase, design development, construction drawings, and then even during construction, that person goes through to make sure that the builder builds what's on the drawings from an ADA perspective.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yeah.
I've worked with a lot of architects in doing this kind of work, and I would like to know, how do we ensure that the architect understands the functionality of the ADA? Because the very first paragraph of the design standard says these are the minimal requirements for accessibility, and they may not meet the needs. And you should take in consideration the population that is being served. So how do we ensure the person is a subject matter expert? Thank you.
Time to formulate your answer.
Yeah. So, first of all, everybody that's on the team is registered as an architect, and they have to be conversant with those requirements. Our office has been doing senior centers since 1990, and you're right, those ones that you saw are recent in the last 6 years when, Tommy?
They don't meet standards.
Well, there's a lot of ways to do the handrails at the bottom of stairs that don't necessarily meet the 2-foot extensions and that, but well, I'm going to guarantee you that every opportunity from the designer to the peer review to every step of the way, that is an important factor that's brought in to the project to make it totally accessible for not only physically disabled, but there might be mentally disabled folks into the building and other disabilities that are using the building. So it's an important part of the design, and it's not minimized.
Yeah, I would just add that, as Joel mentioned, they have been doing this for quite a while, and it is a standard requirement for all architects. Also, the work that we do as owners project managers is almost exclusively public work. We also provide a design review once Joel has the drawings together. So at this stage, a lot of the ideas are conceptual and the floor plans are being developed, these things are being worked out. But I think you can rest assured that once we go through the details, that all those accessibility requirements will be met. That is part of the law.
So, more questions?
So on the third meeting that we have, at which point there should be some cost part of it, but is that also the final designs? These are not the final designs, as you said, it's conceptual.
Other questions? I saw your hand up.
Elevators in the building. I couldn't see it.
There are elevators in the building, absolutely.
So, I noticed like the arts and craft room in the 60s unit, but are those rooms going to be accessible to under 60? So, if some 40-year-old group wants to do an art project, can they reserve that room? I mean, are we going to have it open to all groups or only 60?
So I can comment on that. So the town had an operational meeting, I guess it was last week, I think, with the various departments for Elder and Human Services, recreational departments, and veteran services. And during that meeting, as well as what's been stated tonight, that the priority is for the 60-plus population for the facility. What has been discussed so far, and this is still in flux, but that the primary usage of those spaces during the daytime hours, like between, let's say, 9 a.m. and 3 p.m., would be almost exclusively for the 60-plus age groups. After that, there might be some after-school programs that trickle into some of the spaces, like the gymnasium that Joel had pointed out. And then after work hours, what was envisioned is that the spaces would be primarily, let's say, 18-plus adults. So there would be, continue to be senior programs that are offered during the evening hours. We've heard from some seniors in the community who have maybe they were retired and they've gone back to work, or they have other commitments during the day. Maybe they're taking care of grandkids, and they're not able to get to the programs that are being offered during the daytime hours. So there will also be programs for that part of the population in the evening as well as other people, maybe people in their 40s, like you mentioned, that are getting off of work and still have social engagements. And it's important to remember that, this is always changing. So every year you have another group of people that reaches that 60-year mark, and it'll continue to happen. We're now in the development process. It's going to take a number of years before the facility is ready for occupancy. So it's important to keep that in mind as well. So part of the outreach that was done with Recalc was to engage with some of those groups that are going to be using this facility in a few years from now, or even in 10 years from now, and understand what those constituents are interested in as well. So
it's really a great question, because every project is a little different. In the arts and crafts room, you saw a huge storage room, which is intended to allow multiple use. But in reality, there's times you may have a quilting program going on, and you can't set the quilts up, take it down at 3 o'clock so the kids can come in your room and then set them up the next morning. It all falls apart. So what many of our centers are doing is what I proposed here, is to have an arts and crafts room and the makerspace. The makerspace is sort of that community space that's not claimed by anyone. It's a little bit more, it's got all sorts of arts and crafts programs. And then you have the other arts and crafts where you can have a big program going on that may take 3 or 4 weeks or months for seniors to put together, and you don't want to have to put it together. So times may change throughout the year when those rooms are available. And that's really an operational issue. It's a design issue, having the support space around that room to facilitate that flexibility.
I raised the question because I was thinking, if it's not going to be used, could somebody rent that space and then help pay for the rent or expenses? And that's one of the reasons I was thinking of. Don't let the space just sit there if it can be used.
Our recreation director, Jim Sullivan, has said in our operational meetings that if there's space that's available, he can program it. So, and our Elder and Human Services Administrator, Mr. Kowaleski, can do the same thing. I tried. I was that close. So, yeah, that's a great idea. We're right with you. Okay, back here. Thank you.
We had a fall neighborhood party, and this came up, and it's interesting because we had neighbors in their 50s, 60s. We had at least 2 that were the 70 plus, and none of them were actually in support of this project because it's being marketed as a community center. Everyone agreed that they want to support a new senior center, but they did not want to have the tax burden of a community center. So the question is there a secondary design that is smaller? Questions came up. We have a library that was marketed when it was presented that was going to be a community center. And one of the gentlemen goes, he's really retired, goes to the Y every morning and wants to know why is he going to pay for another gym when everybody at the Y in the morning is retired. They're all at the Y. So that was one question. Is there a secondary design that's smaller? Are you giving voters an option for a senior center, or is there only going to be an option for a community center? And the other concern for the folks who were voicing this is because they probably will at some point be the people using this, and they were concerned about the additional tax burden. To be quite honest, that we're putting on our seniors for the senior center when it's perhaps going to be a much larger project. So I guess I would like those issues addressed. Is there another option of a smaller design?
Who would like to take that one? Thank you, Brian.
So at this stage, what we've heard from the community through the Recalc outreach that was done, the surveys and the community forums, is that desire was to have a center for active living that had a focus for seniors, but also included uses by other generations. The square footage itself, if you remember the plans, a majority of the square footage is for that dedicated senior space. The big anomaly to that would be the gym space. What we've heard from the recreation department is that they currently rent gym space at other locations. So not having to rent the space in other locations will save the town money and help to finance some of that investment. The other part is that, as we heard before, these parts of the community that are aging into this have a desire for more active programs. The pickleball is also related to that, even though that's a separate part of the project. So having that within the senior space will provide an opportunity to engage in some kind of recreational programs, even during, the winter months and things like that. So I hope that addresses your question.
And we appreciate that. Yeah, I know. I need it.
Thanks for bringing that up, Nancy. I think that one of the things that I think may be being assumed is that, hey, these folks age 60 plus, they don't use gyms other than going to the Y. They don't need a walking track. Those aren't necessary aspects of a new facility that we'd be putting together. And I take issue with that. I think that that's not the case. I think that what we're seeing from the survey, as Brian just talked about, as we're seeing with what other communities are doing, I think what really hit me is when I heard these other communities we went to where they just built newer facilities, and we asked them, if you had to do it again, what would you do differently? And they said, we put in a gym. I think it's really an important part of the project is to have that flexibility, that capability. I think some of the questions that have come up, hey, if we aren't using the space, is it going to sit quietly? My personal opinion as an individual, to the extent we can manage it and there's demand for it, it could run 24/7. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but there's an opportunity that way. And I think that the community is needing these spaces. I think it's integral to what we're talking about for the age 60 plus group.
Other questions? Yeah.
Thank you. Great presentation. Angela Binda, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 5. I have 3 questions and I'll get them out and you can answer them. The first, as you're going around talking to other people or other towns, has anybody regretted having a joint space? Has anybody said, well, we really wish we kept it just a senior center? Another question, I was really surprised by the different designs for the Killen School and how they all pretty much came out at the same cost. And I'm wondering if, even if we took off the gym, would it probably not even be that much more savings because so much of the savings so much of the cost goes into all of the other things. And my third question is, looks like a really big space, looks beautiful with, a front desk and everything. How's it going to be staffed? Have you thought about, how many more permanent positions might be needed to staff a building that size?
Angela, you always bring me good questions. I'll let Joel, do you want to take the first couple of questions? Anybody regret just building the senior center and the gymnasium cost factor?
Yeah, I haven't heard any regrets from doing that, joint centers, and they've done a lot. In fact, Pat and his firm and ours built the first one in Randolph 8 years ago. It's still working, they love it. It's that idea has taken off. Falmouth, Situate, Pembroke, Sudbury, we mentioned, Worcester. Westboro, they're all bringing that gym. In fact, Westboro bought an old defunct Boston Sports Club, puts a senior center on the ground floor and has a whole recreation space on the second floor for seniors. So it's really a growing opportunity. The cost, you're right. When you take a square foot out of the building, you generally only save about 60 cents on the dollar. because when you take a square foot out of the gym, you still need the parking space, the parking lot, the foundations, the roof. It isn't a one-to-one. I bet Pat can even add to that as a contractor how less impactful taking square footage out of the space.
Yeah, I just echo what you say. If you back it down 10% in size, you might not get 10% of the cost back. And specifically, sort of locking off the gym, I understand that might, if you look at the plan, and that might look like 30% of the cost of the size of the building, and say, can we just lock off the gym? You will not save 30% of the cost of that building. The gym is, relatively cost-effective portion of the building to build.
And then I'm happy to try to speak to the operational and the staffing piece. The way that it is, and I'm gonna maybe call on Jenna if I need you. All right. But staff is met to talk about how we offer programming in this space and how our staff together will be able to program multi-generational space. So these plans that Joel has put together do not include any new staffing. We believe that we can do this work with existing staffing, and then at night, we would be hiring some part-time people. If it's recreation that's managed in sort of the evening programming, right? Maybe we're doing some middle school, after-school special programs. Maybe we have the gym open for men's leagues. We can have night yoga. I'm into it. God knows I need to go. Gym, through our recreation funding, through our revolving account, we can hire part-time staff. So it would not have an impact on our operational budget. Maybe that's optimistic. I mean, if Mark wants to do it 24/7, we're going to have to talk to him about the budget just a bit. But town staff take our program very seriously. We take our budgets very seriously. We do conservatively budget, and we have worked with the design team to be able to bring it forward with the existing staffing. In fact, one of the really great things that is included is some swing space that offers private space with a nurse upstairs, and then also visiting professionals, so shine, counseling, tax preparation, some of the regular programs that we offer, but we can now offer them in the daytime and at night. So like when my mother was going through retirement, I needed help to help her move through her retirement, and that would have been great for me to access. So just by way of example, is that correct, Jen? Did I get that right? All right. Anybody else?
Jay?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Thanks. Another thing that was talked about early on, and I would imagine still remains in the plan, is that there are consulting firms that work, and Joel had recommended one to us already, that look at how you need to staff space based on what you're looking to do. So in addition to what already has been generated internally in terms of the thinking about it, these are folks that do it professionally and can give us guidance on, okay, here's exactly what you're going to need to make sure that you can run that. So that would be part of the project. Remember I showed the slide early on about how much we spend in elder services, human and elder services, compared to other communities. I think that we have not been spending perhaps as much as we're going to need to. And I think that's a priority inside the budget that the town is going to need to tackle also.
One quick question also.
I mean, sure.
Could you just also maybe give a little background on the thinking behind putting
This project with Killam before the voters in such a close proximity in terms of sticker shock? Because I think that's a concern a lot of us have about how voters are going to look at these two very big projects coming at them in such a short time. If you could give us a background on why it was punched.
Yeah. You want to take it? Because you want to take it? Okay, we can take a different run at it, different ways. So I've been working on both of these projects in different ways, beginning with the procurement of the designers and the OPMs for the different project. They have developed organically on their own paths. So MSBA accepts the Killam School project into its own piece, and then this project, ReCal, began 10 years ago, and then with the ARPA funds moved into the feasibility study phase. So each project has moved independently and has moved at at the rate that it's had to move at, and then we brought in the OPM over the summer, we started that process. So they've kind of come together on their own. And what we're looking for, and what's really important, is to hear sort of, feedback from the community about, where folks are with that. We think that these projects are very important, and we're bringing them forward to the public in the right time frame, in the timeline that you would that we would naturally follow for these projects. So, Mark?
You did a great job. Just a quick add. I think that what the town of the select board, I think, is going to have shared is that there are some high priorities for large projects. And we owe it to the community so that everybody knows what those priorities are, what's being considered, how much they're going to cost, and no one has a surprise based on that. I think we learned a little bit from the library project where people pushed back pretty hard because they got surprised. Not that they necessarily had a problem with it, but that they didn't know. So we want to make sure as people know what's going on. And if the voters decide the timing shouldn't be exactly right and want to move it, that's up to the voters to do that. But to not share what is kind of in the vision, I think people would feel that they didn't have a full picture. And I think we want to make sure everybody has a full picture.
It's also really important, if you look at the two projects together, we're looking at preschool through our entire population of our age. As a community, as we bring them forward, they're both together. And there's no way that any of us can say, this group is more important than this group. Everybody has their own interests, and I think it's important to reflect that. There are different factors, right? The MSBA project comes with a huge grant. There are lots of process and requirements we have to go through with that, whereas with the RECAL, we have a lot more local control. It's entirely local. But as staff, we have sought a transparent process to bring these forward intellectually, honestly, with the community. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the controversy over the gym, at one of our COA meetings, the town clerk, Laura Jemmy, made a statement that in the future, the federal government may not allow voting at any public schools, which means in the future, we will need a place for voting. And if we have a gym in our new center, we will have a place. I feel as though we need the gym.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Karen Janowski, town meeting member, Council on Aging as well. This was an excellent presentation in terms of validating the need for the 60-plus community. It highlighted all the deficiencies, and we really, that's why we're here. We really want to support the 60-plus community. One of the things I'm concerned about, though, is the expense and what Nancy Doctor referred to. I did go to the North Andover Senior Center that was recently completed, and my understanding is that cost was about $15 million. I hate this feedback. Do you hear it? And then Wilmington, I understand, is building a new center as well, and my understanding is that's coming in for about $18 million. So I'm curious why there seems to be such a discrepancy in terms of the cost for our center.
That's a great question. I'll give it to Brian.
Sure. It's definitely important to compare this project against what other communities are doing. That was done initially with some of the recalc work, and that's something that we will be presenting some updates on as we move forward. But what I can tell you is that there really isn't any magic in the numbers. Whether you're building a senior community center in one location or another location, the cost per square foot is going to be fairly similar, and it's actually not that much different than a school project. So it does have to do with the size of the facility, but as you add program space to the facility, you also get increased efficiencies. So the program that was developed over a pretty long period of time with the feedback from the different departments and from the community, and they've established that square footage as the base, and the project's costs will be based on that. And as I said, we will have some comparisons once we come up with some initial costs to be able to show how that compares to other towns and other communities.
You're comparing total project versus construction cost.
Yes, Joel was just pointing out. So when numbers float around, I mean, there's two main numbers that are factored in. One is the cost of construction, and then the second is the overall project cost. And the overall project costs are, roughly a third more than the construction costs. And those include things like all the upfront costs for the design team, for the project management. It includes contingency fees for overruns. It includes furnishings, other owner-directed costs. So all of that gets rolled into the overall project cost. And another very important part to understand is that costs go up every year. And when we talked before about are these happening at the same time or should they happen at a different time, it's a very good question. But the reality is the more a project is put off, the higher the price tag comes. So that's also important to remember when you're looking at projects in other communities that were built. Maybe they're being built now, or they were built last year. This project won't be built still for a few more years. So the cost estimates that are put together factor that in so that there's no surprise once the bids come in and all of a sudden we realize, well, we approved this amount of money, but we don't have what it takes to move forward.
You have questions online? You have questions online? Okay.
We have Julia Rodriguez online with her hand up.
Julia, you can unmute yourself if you want to speak.
Hi, sorry.
No worries.
So, good, nice project. I'm, 63 years old, so this obviously would be something that I would be using. But what I have heard is the concern also about teen space. Does this community center not have that built into it?
So currently there's no dedicated teen space, but as we've discussed before, did I hear correctly, teen spaces and teenagers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
But as was discussed before, is that there would be different programs that would be offered in the afternoons and evenings that would accommodate other age groups. So I can't speak specifically to the programming of those, but maybe Jenna.
Hi, Jenna Wood, Community Services Director. I have a new last name. I got married, so sometimes I find myself finding my thanks, everyone. But to the teen point, something that we struggle with in our community holistically is the middle school and teen age group, and offering them a safe space to come, offering them opportunities to congregate together, maybe stay out of a little bit of trouble. And something that we talked about in our operational plan meeting, which was a really awesome idea collectively, was in that after school time when our senior demographic would go home and then maybe our retired seniors or some other seniors would come back after dinner at 6 o'clock, that between that 3 to 5 p.m. time frame, we would go around to each of the middle schools, pick up some kids from the middle schools or the high schools and bring them over to the center to get picked up at around 5, and they can drop in to the billiards room, and there could be some 60 plus guys still playing in there and have those interactions. They could go into the gym and play some pickup basketball, but also seniors can be in another portion of the gym still playing pickleball. So we thought that incorporating that middle school and teen age group into some of those afternoon activities in a thoughtful, not like 50 middle schoolers in the building at a time, but certainly they would pre-register and there'd be maybe 15 to 20 kids in an after-school program twice a week that we would oversee directly. So that kind of adds a little bit of character to the teen space and the middle school space.
Was there other questions online?
We had one comment online. Someone said that I think the gym for the seniors is a very important feature for the facility. The comment was, I think the gym is that the gym for the seniors is a very important feature for the facility. Maybe more seniors that may be intimidated at the Y will utilize this gym and thus be healthier.
Other questions? Comments? Seeing none. It's 20 minutes to 9. I'll give the mic to our town manager.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, we could wrap up tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming. This kind of feedback is just what we wanted, just what we hoped for. There were a lot of great questions out there. We're taking copious notes. So all of your questions will be answered and all your concerns will be dealt with. I just want to say that for the record. Also, if there are any boards that now have to adjourn from their meetings, they can do that now. I believe we're wrapping up. So, any chairs that Pat, did you-
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the permanent building committee. Seconded. All in favor?
Yeah, roll call now. The roll call, sorry.
Mark? Yes. John?
Motion to adjourn, let's see.
Nancy?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Pat, yes. The permanent building committee is adjourned.
Motion to adjourn the council meeting. Second. Roll call. Rosemary? Yes. Karen Janansky? Yes. John Carson? Yes. Marilyn? Yes. Nancy Zimlat? John? Yes. Yes. John?
Are there other select board members still on the call?
Yeah, Mark, me and Melissa.
Oh, thanks. How about, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, Melissa?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Mark? Yes, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes our program. Drive home safely. Thanks for coming out.